What? Hello and welcome back to the Doctor Who Marathon. I'm your host McEdam, and today we're going to be talking about the Torchwood episode Random Shoes, written by Jacqueline May and is directed by James Erskine. Both of them, this would be their only appearance working behind the series of both Torchwood or any other Doctor Who thing. So this is their only contribution to the series. And this story is so weird from a structure point of view. Not like, you know, it does anything weird. In fact, it's a very kind of mundane story. It's one of the few, it's not really a Doctor-like, because, you know, Torchwood has always been a Doctor-like series, if you think about it. But Jack is hardly in it, so you could say this is a Jack-light episode. And what's really strange, what's really bizarre, is that this story takes a lot of cues from Love and Monsters. Yes, one of the most hated Doctor Who stories, one which was so critically panned that it almost destroyed the revived series of the new series. And they decide, let's do it again. I don't know whose creative decision this is. I don't know if Jacqueline May just had a script that's just so similar with it. Whether it was Chris Chibnall, Russell T Davies, and who's the other expert, Julie Gardner. If it was their idea to come up with this and then they hired Jacqueline May. But yeah, this story has a lot of similarities with Love and Monsters. We have a character, a young man who is a bit of a constant failure and has this obsession. In Love and Monsters it's the Doctor, here it's the obsession with kind of aliens and specifically Torchwood, and they're kind of a doofus, they're kind of a nobody. We see the story through their point of view as they have limited encounters with Torchwood. The story is mainly set through flashbacks and a monologue, and it's so similar that it's essentially a remake, in a sense. It's so... There's even a character, a minor character, mind you, like, who has like a very small role at the end of it, also named Linda, as in the team that Elton was in Love and Monsters. Why? Who wanted this? I don't understand. Who went, what was wrong with Love and Monsters? Was it the poor script, the terrible characters? No, it was because it was in a show that didn't allow swearing. That is what this story needed. So yeah, it's really strange on that half. And the similarities are so overwhelming. I mean, I still can't process that. They remade Love and Monsters for Torchwood. What the hell? Not to say that it's a complete copy, but there's a lot of similarities. It's so strange. This story isn't a very popular one. This story isn't considered one of the best Torchwood episodes. It clearly shows. But does it stand on its own 2 feet? Or does it, well, the random shoes just some crappy shoes? I don't know, I'm just shocked by this. Like, how did this story get made? Like, who decided this was a concept that needed to be revisited? I just don't understand. I don't understand how this works. But anyway, the story starts off with a character named Eugene Jones. He just seems to be on the floor. And right off the bat, we get him monologuing about everything, about how, like, time and space, this is amazing and stuff, and everything. The speed of light is blah, 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 blah. The speed of a sneeze is blah, 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 and life is so short. And then he wakes up in the middle of the road, and then he gets onto a crime scene, seemingly just walks on there, and as the Torchwood team are investigating a body, and the body is that of Eugene Jones. Yes, this story deals with the afterlife of some sort and deals with the death, as Eugene Jones is basically a ghost in this story. The story is mainly about him reflecting on his life as he follows the investigation of his death. And right off the bat, Eugene, I feel like this story could have been so much better than Love and Monsters, but Eugene is such an annoying character that all you want to do is just punch him in the face because he just rambles on. And yeah, he gets a lot more focused later on in the episode, but at the start he clearly comes off as this I don't want to say pathetic, because you can have good written pathetic characters, like characters who don't accomplish much in life and that's the tragedy of their life, but he's just that poorly written. There's just no way of describing it. This entire story kind of has a, despite having a scene in which you see Eugene's dead body and his blood everywhere, has a very kid-friendly feel to it. I feel like this episode could have easily, take out the scene with the body, you could have easily put this on Sarah Jane Adventures. You could have easily done that. Doctor Who did this story already. Why are we going... Sorry, I know I'm hammering on that point, but it's just mental that they do this. But anyway, it's here that he realises he's a ghost. We lead into the credits scene. Gwen gets in contact with Eugene's family, and Eugene then tells us the story of his life. We see flashbacks of him as a kid, and that he failed in a competition, a maths competition, and his father left. He blamed himself, which is such an awkward character. Like, you can feel the dialogue, the way it's structured. You can feel like it's going, hey, care for Eugene. His father abandoned him after he lost a contest, a maths contest. Eugene is a failure and his father thinks he's a failure, kind of thing. The way it's structured, and the fact that this really doesn't have much of a plot point, it's literally just stopping the story dead on its tracks to go, hey, look, this is a part of my character. I'm sure this will be important later and will get you emotionally drained, like, you get what I mean? Like, the story is pushing that element. Yeah, we then learned that after failing, he went to his geometry class, I think it was, and his teacher gave him an eye, this eye that seemingly had fallen from space. And Eugene basically believes that this is an eye of an alien, and the alien has will come one day to retrieve its eye again. Right off the bat, Eugene just doesn't remotely, something in the writing process was clearly wrong. Like, we get the scene of his father leaving and he's knocking on the window, and the monologue is like, that was the day my father left. But it doesn't matter, I had the eye, and the eye will show me to all these aliens. I understand. I do like the aspect of this kid. He has his eye, which is he believes is an alien, and then he grows up with this fascination with aliens. That to me feels really relatable. But the fact that he keeps the eye because he hopes one day that the aliens will come down and take it back. I mean, it's an eye, for God's sakes. The most chance is the alien is bloody exploded and died into fragments of pieces. It's an eye! Like, you're not going to have somebody who's like, oh, look, excuse me, I'm looking for my eye. Like, I understand, like, he thinks it's an alien and that thing, but the whole aspect of he believes that the alien's going to come back is obscured, and we see him. We can cut like years later where it was actually a few months prior to his death, and he's trying to get Torchwood interested in the eye, but every time he bumps into them when they go into a crime scene, which then begs the question, he tracks around like all of these crime scenes, he's always there trying to track down Torchwood. He knows Gwen by her name. That is messed up. And the fact that Torchwood doesn't like question him, the fact that like he's always at the crime scene, like, what the hell are you doing, Torchwood? You're not very good at your jobs. But he keeps stuttering, and he seems to get falling for Gwen, this woman who works with a secret organisation that he's trying to get, like, no, sorry, the relationship between Eugene and Gwen, no, not buying it at all. Completely stupid. Also, this story never references the affair between Gwen and Owen, never mentions the relationship between Gwen and her boyfriend, and this story makes you want to have this like love relationship between them and not want it to be stalkery feeling like sorry, it's just this story, it just frustrating. These scenes of flashbacks are intertwined with Gwen. First of all, she tries to investigate. She goes to Eugene's house, tries to find out like what he knew. Maybe this was some sort of conspiracy. He knew too much, and so he was killed for it. But quickly they learned that the car crash was genuinely an accident, and that there was no reason to his death. It was a genuine accident, and so the rest of the Torchwood team drop it. But Gwen gets the feeling that the feeling. It's the feeling in my gut. You know, something is wrong, and it's not just because of the plot convenience of me being determined for Eugene. No, it's definitely my gut feeling. Yeah, the structuring of the flashbacks to scenes, and the fact that 9 out of 10 cases the scenes just don't go anywhere, and some of them are cripplingly awkward. There's a scene in which after Gwen gets a DVD from Owen, which was borrowed from like a Blockbuster that Eugene was like. Owen went to Eugene's like private belongings and started watching a DVD. Gwen decides to take it back for him, and she goes into the Blockbuster where she meets this guy, and that guy is familiar. I'm sure he's off some sort of Welsh sitcom that I remember as a kid. You could probably tell me what he's from in the comments below or something. And she's telling this guy that this person that the DVD belonged to is dead and he had like an accident. Whilst this guy is just constantly, pushingly flirting with Gwen, and Gwen clearly is like uncomfortable, but this character, and especially like we learn later on, it's such an awkward scene, especially when we're supposed to know that he is actually friends with Eugene. He was one of his closest friends, and he acted like this. It's so disgustingly awkward, and I just hated every bit of that scene. And that scene only exists so we get introduced to this character. I believe his name is Gary. And to understand, that he is a disgusting character, and that we can set up that when it's revealed that he's the bad guy, or at least some sort of bad guy, then the audience don't have to care that much because he was a slimy prick. Like, that scene, so awkward, so uncomfortable, absolutely absolutely hate it. It's also around here that we kind of get the impression that Gwen senses Eugene there. Like, Eugene says something and Gwen kind of picks up on it. She goes to the cafe that he used to go to, and when the waiter asks for what she wants, Eugene says what he usually buys, and then Gwen says like the exact same thing, like 2 eggs and ham or something like that. But the issue with this story is that it keeps grinding to a complete halt as we get these scenes which are clearly meant to be the quirky. Also, the title, Random Shoes, comes from photos that Gwen had found on Eugene's phones of random shoes. And that kind of leads her into the mystery. It's like, why did he take photos of shoes? Random shoes. Like, what does this have to do with anything? Especially when we find out what the photos are. It's such a massive disappointment. Gwen eventually, like, say, 2/3 into the episode, goes to Eugene's workplace and discovers something valuable. It turns out that Eugene was actually planning on selling this eye so he can make money for this woman to go to Sydney, because he had an encounter with his father and learned that he was just a bum as well, and that after his mother had told him that he was this massive corporation guy who moved to America and became a successful businessman, but it turns out he was actually working at a petrol station just 2 miles down from the road, which is just such another awkward little moment. The story is full of awkward, stupid scenes like that. And Gwen basically tracks down, like, Eugene was fed up, he didn't believe in the eye, and he tried selling it on eBay, but it turns out the bids were getting higher and higher and higher and higher. And he started believing that the alien is real and tried to buy the eye off eBay. And Gwen takes this completely bloody serious. I mean, I understand, Gwen is new to the alien stuff, but aliens using eBay is just so stupid. Sorry, can't take that seriously. I think this is probably a good moment to try and break down the poor plot in with some comments on the directing. The directing is horrible. There are some visual studs, I should say, some very poorly executed scenes and shots. With this being season 1 of Torchwood, there's also some really awkward editing and some of those cliche early 2000s moments, which I hated and distracted me from previous episodes beforehand. But here, not that it works better, but because we're dealing with a much more cheesy plot, I guess it does kind of fit, but not in a good way. Like, it doesn't enhance the story, it just makes the entire thing feel corny. So it's kind of like, I will go to this story if I'm in the mood to watch some corny rubbish. And does that make any sense? That probably makes no sense at all. And you can kind of understand why the creative team here, this was the only story they did for Torchwood. I don't have anything against them. They probably did some really great things out of Torchwood, outside of Torchwood and outside of the Doctor Who universe. But clearly, these two creators on this story weren't a good fit with each other and weren't a good fit for this franchise. So Gwen basically tries to track down where he sold the eye. He was met to meet the buyer at a restaurant, the Happy Cook, where it's revealed that the entire thing was a massive prank on Eugene. His friends, the guy from the Blockbusters and that guy that he was working with with his boss, Gwen later tracks him down in Aberystwyth, and he basically reveals that he was part of putting the bidder higher and higher as a joke on Eugene, but then somebody did outbid him, and so Eugene went to the Happy Cook to find the buyer. But then it turns out that he really was a part of it, and that the guy at the Blockbuster was also part of it. We later learned that there was an actual real buyer, but it's not an alien, it's just some madman who bought alien memorabilia and Nazi propaganda, so clearly he's off his rocker, and they plan to take the eye from Eugene and sell it to this buyer, getting it tons of money for it. And Eugene, annoyed by the fact that his friends have betrayed him, swallows the eye and runs off in a frenzy, where he then gets hit by the car, leading into the opening of the story. And that's basically where the story ends, as narratively wise, as these two characters then enter the restaurant right after Gwen. They're like, oh, somebody's going to be asking questions about us. It'd be in your best interest if you tell them nothing, only for Gwen to be there. The Blockbuster guy tries to escape, but the other guy holds him down, and so they discuss, it's like this entire thing was a prank on Eugene. I do apologise, and Eugene is like upset and tortured by this scene, this moment, I guess. And then we get like a moment, it's like we then go to Eugene's funeral, and Eugene remembers, and his father actually turns up at the funeral, and there's a I will admit, it's so unbelievably corny that I did burst out in laughter when the father, he struggles to find words because, you know, he hasn't been there for his son, and then he just starts singing. Just the way that scene plays out, it's like, it's so I think the intent is like, you know, he's struggling to find words, and so he breaks out into song because it's the only way he can truly show his emotions. But the way the scene plays out, the way it's directed, the way it's written, comes off more like he generally just like has nothing to say. So kind of distract everybody on the fact that he doesn't have anything to say. He just bursts out in song. It's hilariously awkward, and despite it's supposed to be an incredibly sad moment, I burst out laughing. And the story concludes with Eugene's house, basically with like everybody coming back from the funeral, and Gwen has had somebody take the eye out of Eugene, and Eugene is like, okay, the eye's out, so how am I still a ghost? Surely I should be gone. And Gwen is about to go to meet up with the father to be like, to talk about something, when Eugene notices that the car's come in and about to run Gwen over, and so he tackles her to the ground, and everybody can see Eugene, and everybody is in awe. Even Jack can see him. All of his family are wondering, it's like, what the hell? And Gwen is just so thrilled, so happy that Eugene is back and he saved her, and she's so glad for him to be alive. Despite in the last episode, they had this horrifying experience about resurrection, and now we have an episode in which a guy is resurrected and everyone's like glad about it. Obviously that's not really an issue with the story, but more than the placing of this episode. I mean, this story comes right after they keep killing Susie. Like, that element should really like freak our characters out. Like, that is just seriously messed up. And Eugene is like, he saves Gwen's life, and then he feels like, it's time, I've got to go into the light. And we get this, the story ends on such a ridiculously corny note that I physically can't believe that I witnessed this. I, honest to God, believe that I blanked out at the end of this episode and that the final moments is just purely out of my imagination. As you see him from like the waist down, clearly like just the actor doing like that, like straightening up. As the light behind him gets brighter, as he fades away to heaven. Oh, look how amazing, he's gone to heaven. Despite in the last episode, it's revealed that in the Doctor Who universe, death is just a black, endless void of nothingness. But I guess we need a happy ending for this, as Gwen before just snogs him as well, which is part of the whole relationship thing, which again, Gwen has a boyfriend and is having an affair with Owen, and none of these get mentioned in this story. Very awkward in terms of the series. And Eugene is going up into the sky as Gwen is like, please don't go, please. And I love the actress who plays Gwen, but that scene, clearly she was given some really poor direction there. That was such an awkward performance. Sorry, I know, criticising her performance is something which really hurts me personally as well, but that scene, her acting in that scene was so offbeat. And there you go, that is Random Shoes. Overall, it is easily the worst story in the revived series. Yes, in my opinion, it's worse than Love and Monsters and Fear Her and The Idiot's Lantern. Which I just realised all of those stories are from series 2. At least it's the worst story in the revived series so far that we've tackled, with clearly there'll be more worse stories later on. I really don't want to talk about Hell Bent when we get there, but that's beside the point. Poorly acted, poorly directed, poorly written. Like everything is so offbeat, so cartoonishly silly. Some scenes are awfully awkward. The plot rarely goes anywhere. It's dull. It's irritating. The monologues get way out of hand. Like if I was a script editor on this episode, the first thing I would do was just cut 99% of the dialogue. That's one way. I think you could re-edit this story to make it better. If I get editing software, that's the first thing I'm going to do, is re-edit Random Shoes. Not so Random Shoes. That's what I would call my episode. But I will admit, it's hilariously bad. I did have an enjoyment of just how stupid this is. Just laughing at the fact, this is supposed to be a story taken so seriously, but we got this such a cartoonish character that we're following in this cartoonish plot, which is resembling Love and Monsters. So there you go, that's Random Shoes. So join me next time where we go into one of the most highly anticipated Doctor Who stories, as the Doctor doesn't seem quite like himself. In fact, you could say he seems sort of human. So join me next time for Human Nature and the Family of Blood. And I'll see you next time on the Doctor Who Marathon. Ta-da!